Peace. This is Star with the Star Blooms. Trigger warning with this message. I'm gonna be talking about ain't no cute way to say this. I'm gonna be talking about different rates of it is a different way to say. That's why you gotta be connected with your spirit team so you have all rates of perception. And allow yourself before you connect to this message to recognize that you have free permission, okay? And to anybody who's pulled to my energy at this time, whether you be intrigued, um, or not. If this message is for you, it's meant to find you at this time. Uh, it will be aligned to the rate of communication that you've been having internally, even if you aren't able to conceptualize it in the way that I'm going to transpond. Okay, what I'm about to say. I'd like to first thank Archangel Michael for covering and shielding any and all forms of communication, accesses, and parameters. At this time, I ask that divine justice be cast upon those who are instigating, infiltrating, and attaching themselves etherically and physically to anyone's energy that is listening to this message, as well as myself, with consent or without consent, at a negative rate, with a desire to manipulate or intend upon negatively or against anyone else's will. I thank you to my higher self as well as my divine ancestors who are benevolent, who are closest to the light, and who are here assigned with me, aiding me at my highest vibrational frequency. I ask Most High that you allow me to speak at a rate to where only what you desire to be heard and received is what I transmit. Okay. Um, when we in situations, right? A lot of the times we aren't aware of subtle changes that occur at a major rate and frequency depending on where we are. Um, my baby, she's always like clearing the frequency and I love it. She just starts singing. Um, I was thinking about YOLO when I paused a second ago, like the rate of you only live once. Sometimes we get to this rate of life where, especially if we're young minded, where we believe that we get to cast out consequences due to the rate that there is this one life, one experience, one chance opportunity that we get to take and make, even though things may be at a rate of stop, pause, red flag. And we participate in certain buy-in rates. We manipulate our intuition and we pause and create a rate of filtering our truth with illusions and constantly instigating places that we have previously been able to satiate ourselves in with comfort based off of desire, a lot of times wrapped in lust and temptations because of YOLO. This could go in two ways. A lot of people who have been in circumstances to where you're being abused, a lot of the times you are placed in a circumstance to where you are removed from that which that could shield you or remove you from the position that you're in. A lot of the times the first perpetrator, it be you, but it's hard to sit at that rate. Um, and the reason is because a lot of the times the abuse comes from in-house. Okay. And that rate of betrayal alters the trajectory of your mindset and how you perceive other people in their innate way of being. And it even changes the tone and the trajectory of how you actually plan on initiating contact and communication with other people. I.e., it could make you bitter. It could make you hesitant. It could make you guarded. It could make you want to shut down at certain rates, right? Buy-in. I was in an abusive marriage for a pretty long time. I recognized before I got into this marriage that the person was abusive due to conditioning and ways that I've been taught to interact with the opposite sex based off of certain race of betrayal that had happened in house at a very young age, in family at a very young age. I'd already had a rate of susceptibility of basically contemplating things that would go against me. Be at that rate with this. Because sometimes that'd be the hardest thing to swallow, that you recognize that before the event that you believe altered everything occurs, that there were previous prior events that were prefaces that allowed this thing to land somewhere in your body, and you didn't automatically reject it or not even find the thing desirable, because there are things like traits and characteristics that show up in people who have the ability to be at this rate. However, we have this idea and this belief, a lot of us, especially 555, who believe that we've healed, that we'll always be able to have an opportunity to perceive beyond the point of where there's an allotment of people being able to get by us. Like, nothing gets past me. And we have this thing where we want to shield and block ourselves away from things. And the rate that I'm at right now, and I recognize being open is what gives me the ability to be sovereign and free. And being protected is a divine right, but it's something that I operate within my inherited stance and how I show up, embodying that which I've decided and declared and decreed over myself, that then becomes fixed, like this Taurus energy that we sitting in, because my foundation was set prior to the space that I actually cultivated from within me. Enacting in spaces where we've convinced ourselves that things are enticing based off of adrenaline, based off of desire, based off of experience, you forfeit quality and value for material matters. This conversation could go over so many people's head, because a lot of the times people be in love with dealing with their lower remedies. They be in love with enacting out of spaces where they entice their demons, and they'll go into contracts because they believe that it's way easier to do it that way versus trying to heal out of something. And then you see somebody, you see something on them, and you rather try to take their energy because you would think that you deserve to have what they have, not wanting to heal the way that they've healed, so on and so forth, right? Without actually giving yourself permission to be at a rate to where you get to decide and change and alter. I kept on basically processing this conversation as a buy-in and buy-out rate, because I recognized that the first time that my ex hit me was way before I'd even married this guy. It was my first marriage. I look back at it now and I think how crazy it is that I actually sat around communicating with people, wanting them to be more aggrieved and aggrieved than I was for myself, enough to never move or enact anything other than that. Sitting in this space, I recognized how much and how many opportunities I had to remove myself from the situation. But there was so much that I believed that I had invested in the buy-in of the connection, that I was willing to forfeit my buyout at an extreme and egregious rate. Someone keeps on asking me, what did you do and how did you finally walk away? Sometimes risks aren't really prepared for. Sometimes we allow ourselves to become so devalued that hearing somebody else's story and how they got out of a circumstance may not even entice us enough to make that decision for ourselves, because we may believe that we're not strong enough to move in that stance. All I can say is that at some particular rate, you get to love yourself so much that anything that comes into your vortex that doesn't mimic, support you, enlighten you in a rate of loving yourself at an even higher capacity, anything that comes towards you that tries to convince you of anything less than, will be rebuked and removed and will be revoked and not allowed in your atmosphere.